Deputy Prime Minister Renders, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to say that I'm very pleased to be here tonight and to meet the NATO Industry Forum. And especially to be here together with Federica and Espieta, because I think that we share this stage reflects the close cooperation between NATO and the European Union, but also between NATO, the European Union and the defense industry, both in Europe and in North America. And that's exactly why forums like this are so important, because this is a way to create a platform for politicians, for decision makers in NATO and the European Union to meet with the defense industry and to sit down together with you and to find out how we can work more closely together. Because we are totally dependent on you. The defense industry provides the equipment, the capabilities we need, and you have actually provided us with the best equipment in the world and the most advanced capabilities in the world for decades. But we have to make sure that it continues to be like that in a more dangerous and more challenging security environment. And that's the reason why I welcome very much that we this year have the highest level of participation from industry ever at this NATO Industry Forum, reflecting the increased interest both from NATO and from the industry in how we can enhance our cooperation. And as you know, NATO's main core task is to protect close to 1 billion citizens living in Europe and North America. And I think that on a day like this, when the United States has elected a new president, that provides me with the opportunity to congratulate Donald Trump as the new president of the United States. And I look forward to work together with President-elect Trump in continuing to adapt NATO to a more challenging security environment. And a strong NATO is important for Europe, but it's also important for North America and the United States. Because we have to remember that 2 world wars have taught us that peace and stability in Europe is important. For Europe, that's obvious, but it's also important for North America. And we have to remember that the only time we have invoked Article 5, our collective defense clause, was after an attack on the United States. And thousands of soldiers from Europe and Canada have participated, contributed to the NATO presence there. And more than 1,000 have been killed in an operation that was triggered by an attack on the United States. So I think this is a day just to underline the importance of NATO, of strong institutions, providing the platform for strong transatlantic cooperation. Then, of course, NATO can only be able to continue to provide deterrence, provide collective defense, if we continue to have a strong defense industry. And I know that this industry is full of people with a lot of skills, competence, ingenuity, and you know a lot about, what shall I say, technical measures, which is far beyond what I will ever be able to understand. But that's not my task. My task is not to understand all the technicalities of the defense industry. My task is to find out how can I, as Secretary General, and NATO as a military political alliance, provide the best possible framework for the industry to develop and to deliver the capabilities we need. And there are many ways to do that, but I will outline and focus on 3 areas where NATO plays a key role, which is of great importance for the defense industry. And they are in different ways related to defense spending, because NATO is decisive when it comes to how much allies spend on defense, and on what allies spend, and how they spend. And all of this is important for the defense industry. So let me start by defense spending, how much we spend. In 2014, we made the decision in Wales to stop the cuts, to gradually increase, and to move towards spending 2% of GDP on defense. And I'm actually very proud to be able to tell you that NATO is delivering, NATO allies is delivering. Because just a few months after we made that pledge, in 2015, we were able for the first time in many years to have no cuts in defense spending across Europe and Canada as combined. It was not a big increase in 2015, but it's a big difference between going down and going up. And in 2015, we started to go up also across Europe and Canada. Then in 2016, the latest estimates indicates 3% real increase. And that's something. So we have even stronger increase in 2016. Then, of course, we have a long way to go, and the picture is still very mixed. Some allies are lagging really behind, but some allies are really stepping up. So in total, we are moving in the right direction. I'm not underestimating the challenges, and I'm not underestimating the efforts we had to put in place to be able to reach the 2% target. But we didn't promise to reach the 2% target immediately. We promised to stop the cuts, to start to increase, and to move towards 2% within a decade. And at least we have started to do the first steps in that process. I can promise you that I, as Secretary General, will, in all my meetings with leaders, ministers, prime ministers, and also Minister of Finance, continue to focus on the importance of increased defense spending in Europe and in Canada. So all nations reach the 2% target. Some European allies already do that, but many are, still have a long way to go. We will also report on progress or lack of progress on defense spending, on the Defense Investment Pledge, on our ministerial meetings. And defense spending will be an important issue at the NATO summit next year, where we also will welcome the new elected President of the United States here to Brussels. The reason why I am so focused on this is that it matters. If we are able to, reach the 2% target for all European allies and Canada, that will provide 100 billion more US dollars for defense. And 100 billion more US dollars for defense is roughly the same amount for defense spending as France and UK combined spend on defense. So that would really add something to the total amount of defense spending. And I also very much welcome the strong message from the European Union and from European leaders on the need to strengthen European defense, also by increasing defense spending. I'm not underestimating the challenges and the difficulties, but I'm only telling you that we have started to move, and I will promise to continue to be as focused as I've been since I became Secretary General in October 2014 on the issue of defense spending. Then NATO also plays a key role, not only when it comes to the total amount of money we spend on defense, but we also play a key role when it comes to on what we spend. And NATO plays a key role in different ways when it comes to on what we spend. We do that, that's okay, because I'm looking for another page. We do that, page 6, no, that's a good page. I do that because we have, as part of the Defense Investment Pledge, decided not only to spend more, but also to make sure that 20% of total defense spending goes to investments, equipment, and research and development. 10 allies deliver, but we have a long way to go. And of course, the more we can invest in research and development and on equipment, the better for industry, because then you have the market, and then you have also more investments in innovation. But of course, NATO is also important when it comes to on what we spend through our defense planning process. And we are now in the midst of a new defense planning cycle. We are sitting down with all the 28 allies and identifying what do we need, what kind of capabilities, what kind of equipment do NATO need. And this defense planning process is a quite bureaucratic process, but it is extremely important. It's perhaps one of the most important things NATO do, and that is to coordinate allies so we really work together and we fill the gaps when it comes to different kinds of defense capabilities, and to make sure both that we have enough capabilities but also the right kind of capabilities and some kind of division of responsibilities between the different NATO allies. When we have finished this defense planning cycle, our task, my task, the task of the governments will be to make sure that we implement and that we follow up the guidelines and the defense planning conclusions. This is about, for instance, guidance related to capabilities like joint intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance, precision-guided munition, and strategic airlift. So, of course, you all understand it is important that we not only have defense planning, but we also, so to say, implement and follow the plans we have agreed. Then also NATO influence on what allies spend and what NATO spends on by our common funded projects. Things like AWACS, but also the successor, the new Alliance Future Surveillance and Control System, will be a big investment, big project, and we have started to work on that project, which shall then succeed the AWACS plane. Actually, in a meeting, I saw that the plan is to have the new system in place by 2035. And for me, as a politician, that's far into the future. It's after at least the next election. But for people dealing with defense investments, 2035 is just around the corner. So it's the way things work in this industry. Then we also, of course, will work on projects like missile defense and alliance ground surveillance and other common funded and planned and implemented projects. The third area where NATO plays a key role in creating the framework for a strong defense industry in Europe and in the United States is when it comes to how we spend. And both Federica and Elżbieta has already addressed that issue. Because there is a gap when it comes to defense spending between Europe and the United States. But as Federica said, there is also an output gap, meaning that we don't get so much out of what we invest, being it dollars. No, we don't invest dollars in Europe, but at least perhaps not yet. Euros, pounds, and kroner. We don't get as much out of that as we should, because the defense market, the defense investments are too fragmented, especially in Europe. So spending together is a way to spend smarter, and we have to both spend more, but we have to also make sure that we spend in a better way. And again, NATO can make a big difference by encouraging greater multinational collaboration and better coordination of allies' requirements. And you all understand the need. In Europe, we have 19 different types of infantry fighting vehicle. In the United States, they have one. In Europe, we have 13 different types of air-to-air missile. In the United States has 3. And European nations have 29 different types of naval frigate. The United States has 4. So not only do the United States have more, but they have, what I say, divided into not so many different types, while in Europe we have in total less, and we are divided into many more types. And that makes it more expensive. It reduces the potential for economy of scale. It makes training, research and development more expensive, and it reduces the competitiveness of our industry. And again, I'm not saying that we need competition. We need different industries, but we need some greater degree of coordination when it comes to requirements and investments from the European governments, so we can get economy of scale and reduce the unit cost of the different kinds of capabilities and equipment. And again, I can tell you that I understand that this is not easy, because I told some of you before that when I was Prime Minister back in 2000 in Norway, we had a big discussion about buying 5 new Norwegian frigates for the Norwegian Navy. And in Norway, we are used to not building tanks. We are used to not being, what should I say, advanced when it comes to constructing airplanes, but we look upon ourselves as an advanced shipping nation. And we have built ships and frigates for decades, or actually centuries. But then we decided to build the Norwegian frigates at a Spanish shipyard, because they actually had the best and the cheapest offer. And we decided to go for the best and the cheapest. One of the reasons why I lost elections back in 2001 was because of that. So I understand this is not easy, but sometimes you have to lose some elections and then come back. And I was able to. But there is something in between doing things which are absolutely impossible, but also sometimes you need some political courage and to go for the best and the most effective things, and then you also increase the competitiveness of your own industry if you are able to challenge them sometimes and not only protect them. Then we can also improve the way we do our investments by working more closely with the European Union. And this is really something I welcome, that we have been able to strengthen the cooperation with the European Union in so many different ways. And not only was I the first to receive the global strategy from Federica, but one of the first. So we started almost the same day, and we have been together not every day since, but I think there's hardly anyone else I met so much as Federica, and I'm also now working more and more with Elżbieta. And I think that reflects a true will, both in the European Union and NATO, to work together and to overcome some of the obstacles and to find pragmatic solutions for many different reasons. But when I speak about defense industry, this is also important for your industry. And we know that, for instance, several European nations are now working together on a multi-role air refueling tankers that will serve both NATO and the European Union. And we know that Denmark is in lead when it comes to develop precision-guided ammunition, together with several other European countries. So there are some examples where we are able to work together, and this is also part of what we do together with the European Union. In July, I signed a declaration together with President Juncker and President Tusk. It's a declaration about NATO-EU cooperation in many different fields. Federica mentioned some of them. But one of the areas where we decided to work together is capabilities. And Federica and I are now working on the implementation, the follow-up, and we will present our conclusions in December. And she told me when we went into this room that we are, making good progress. So I'd always trust Federica, so this is going to go good. So we are, but Federica and I are working on the implementation of the declaration, and one of the issues we are addressing is exactly how we can also make some progress on capabilities and closer cooperation in the development of capabilities between NATO and the European Union. And we are going to present our conclusions in December, and we will then start to turn the declaration into concrete actions. And the NATO foreign ministers will be asked to approve an implementation plan when they meet in December, and we are preparing that meeting in December. So let me end by stating once again that the defense industry is full of capable people, and by harnessing their talents and ideas, and by putting the most advanced technologies in the hands of our brave men and women in uniform, and by working more effectively together, we are all more secure, and therefore I appreciate so much this cooperation with the defense industry. Thank you.